Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Dean.
Okay, Andrew. So I have a question, but first, let folks know a little bit about you.
Right. So I'm a marketing CMO. I'm a fractional CMO for marketing and
Mhm.
startups, and I've been working with startups for a good 5 years now, helping them to grow from the scratch, pretty much. So it's usually the seed, pre-seed kind of startups,
Right.
sometimes Series A, depending on what their stage in the marketing they've been on.
Okay. So then here's my hypothetical. All right. It's day one of a brand new year-long engagement with a new client. Like you've never worked with them before, fresh, right?
Hmm.
Um, what do you try to like look for or accomplish in the first 3 months or so?
Well, I think is the most important thing here is to understand the priorities and
Mhm.
set the direction and the vector of where we're going to go. So the first few meetings, the first few talks that we're going to have together is just to understand where they stand. Have they done anything before? How they approach their current marketing initiatives? Do they already have the team in place? And just get the ground, understanding of where they are. And going from that is really something that is super important, is identifying where they stand in the market, right?
Right.
So how do they get to understand their competitors? Who is their best profile in terms of their customers? How do they need to understand that customer? What sort of messages they're going to send over to them? The
Right.
tone of voice, all the little details that come along with that. And I
So
think the
who
important
to
part
talk
here
to and how
is
to talk to them.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And that's where the true missing is happening right now. Is a lot of companies jump right into the action points. So let's do some ads and let's do
Right.
some social media marketing, and I'm going to start writing blogs on LinkedIn and whatnot. The issue with this is there's a lot of talk, but there's not a lot of action out of this. And so understanding the customer, understanding who your customer is, how you sit within the competitive environment is super crucial at this stage.
And let me switch to Chris then. Chris, hi.
Hi, Dean.
Tell folks a little bit about you, and then I have like a variation of that hypothetical that I want to ask you instead.
Yeah, so I've worked brand side for the last 10, 11 years.
Mhm.
Um, left my role as CMO of a Danish watch brand. I was living out in Copenhagen for 6 years um, earlier in the year, and now I'm a fractional CMO for a couple of different consumer brands, as well as agency owner as well, and basically specializing within performance marketing, but really looking at everything within the digital remit.
All right. Uh, Here's my hypothetical, but inverted. Like, what in the first 90 days do you try to avoid when you start a brand new engagement?
Um, Good question.
Yeah.
The most important thing I think that we try to avoid is really to rush into taking action. I think a lot of brands are guilty, and myself included at points, of doing too much too soon and expecting results immediately. But it's really important to lay the foundations, to understand who we are and who we're trying to reach, and set out those intentions for the partnership, whatever term that might be, and to not jump into any hasty decisions. It can often come and bite you, and often they tend to be the wrong decisions.
Right. Okay. So, um, in our hypothetical situation, let's imagine I'm the CEO of the client company. Okay. CEO Dean. And we're having our first ever meeting on, I mean, we've talked before, but like this is day one. So now it's official, right? Like this is costing me money just to have you around. So we're having our sort of, kickoff meeting 1-to-1. And I say, hey, Chris, so you've worked with way more CMOs CEOs than I've worked with CMOs, just by the nature of your work versus my work, right? Obviously. So, as the CEO, what should I start doing or stop doing over the next year to make sure that we get maximum value out of the money that we're spending on you?
Yeah. So here I think the most important thing to appreciate again is that growth doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And in most cases, those golden cases where you see brands going from $0 to $100 million, sort of within the space of God knows what period of time, that's very far from the reality ultimately. And so it's really important to just set expectations that things won't turn around, or won't necessarily, the final result won't just be down the road. It really does take time. I've worked with several brands in the past where you come on board, you're meant to be the marketing guy, the go-to guy with all the answers,
Right.
and they expect results immediately, but that's not the reality. So I think it's really important to set that expectation from the beginning. In terms of do's and don'ts, sort of for the year, it's important really just to trust the process, and that process really involves a lot of testing. It's trying to formulate what that customer profile is. It's trying to identify what channels are going to be valuable, are going to add incremental value to their current work, and to go through that process of validating the business model, validating the segments that we're going after, and go into that process of iteration to ultimately find that winning formula to start scaling the brand. And as for the don'ts, it's really, I think it's not to put too much pressure on it. If you put too much pressure, it's going to be things are going to break. You're going to make wrong decisions. You're not going to give the process time to take the necessary learnings, which enable us to go from step 1 to step 2 to step 3.
And Andrew, what do you think? I'm the CEO. Chances are I've been meddling in marketing, or at least somewhat, or I've been actively ignoring it. And so, and especially since you work with a lot of like early stage startups that are probably just learning to crawl as far as marketing functionality goes, right? It's like, as CEO, what should I start doing, or what should I just stop doing going forward?
Stop doing is probably a good thing a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
It usually goes two ways. Either, especially within the realm of startups, either CEOs hire somebody within the team,
Right.
sort of they jump on board and do the marketing role. And if it's a proper seasoned CMO, that's great. They get a good winning strategy from day one. But in most cases, they have a team of specialists, or they would hire somebody to do their Google ads. And like you said,
Mm-hmm.
it's something that they start with some action, right? Okay, let's get some traffic to their website. Let's, do some social media marketing. Let's do some copywriting for our LinkedIn. And that creates a dilemma where you have different separate avenues that you're doing right now. This sort of action is happening, but it's not tied in together in any way. So whatever is happening in your Google ads and the certain customers that you're trying to reach there is not really reflected in your blog posts, or is not really reflected in something that you do with social media. And so the important thing of looking at it, and why I usually come on board, is tying it all together and putting the strategy that will overlap all of these actions. All those actions might be absolutely valuable and important in this particular company or instance, but the value of the oversight of how it flows from one place to another, because the beauty of marketing, or I guess the difficulty of marketing, is you never know where it's going to come from. So sometimes you'll get a lead, you'll get a sale, and you could not be able to pinpoint and say, well, that's where it came from. Yeah, although we do all the metrics and we'll make sure that everything is measured, marketing is sort of talking to your customers from every single direction, from every single channel, and then tying it back into your business. So strategy, or overall strategy, I think, is the important part.
So I'm still CEO. We're still talking, okay? And so, Andrew, I'm looking at my team today. There are some people working in marketing, or there's one person, right? Or who knows how many. And there's been supervision, and then eventually maybe even management, but no one at the leadership level in charge of marketing, right? Officially. And so you're kind of it, right? I'm looking at that team on your day one, and I'm trying to envision what that team is going to look like or be, or how it's going to be different on your day 365, right?
Mhm.
How's that team likely to change? Like internal versus outside mix, full-time versus contractors, skill sets, whatever. Like how is that team going to be different? Ideally better, but different 12 months from now.
There's a crucial inside knowledge that you will always want to keep in the company, and that's usually content generation and understanding the product, right? So I guess that will be definitely a part of your team internally that, you know, in a year or two that you will start working with and sort of develop on. You will have different other freelancers or somebody that works within that year one that could potentially become part of the team. And I don't think there is a set structure. The set structure will really depend on the business, will really depend on, you know, the startup and where the company wants to go. Because again, all the different tests and iterations and marketing trials that we will do will depend on where the customer is and how we approach them. Let's say, you know, I've got one company which is a totally B2B company, and the main channel of growth is outreach on LinkedIn. Right. So you'll have a team of experts or somebody that will be either creating content for the B2B outreach as well as doing the outreach itself. So more of a sales team, right, that comes on board. Then you have, on the other hand, the marketplace, a marketplace startup which grows purely through e-com, purely through PPC and direct marketing campaigns on Google. That's a totally different team, a totally different makeup. Seeing this through into year two is super important because you put in the building blocks to make sure that you have successful continuation from that.
Hey Chris, what do you think? How's my team going to be different a year from now?
I think it's also equally important that you keep the lifeblood of the team flowing. It's really important to have an element of seniority, people who have been through the motions within the company, who understand the nuances to a specific brand. So that's sort of what I aim to keep. But I think it's also really important, or one of the things that I've noticed is often it can just lack direction. And we, as many companies in general, they are doing too much right from the off, or they're doing too little in the right places. And so it's really about coming in and providing clear direction and some clarity to the strategy. You know, a lot of companies have dibble-dabbled within specific fields so it's rare that a company hasn't done anything in one specific area. So it's really about unveiling the curtains and shining a light in terms of what those channels, what those activities can really do for a brand. So I think really, if you fast forward a year, what you're able to do is to identify where that value again is coming from, what the levers are for a company to pull to find growth or to cut costs, and you of course mold the team accordingly. You know, if a specific area is obviously flying, then that's where you look to strengthen. But ultimately, I think it is you don't want to come in and make lots of changes. It can cause uncertainty and often can have the opposite of intended effects of improving performance.
All right, I have a fill in the blank question for you. And the next couple questions are fill in the blank. And these, I really like them, partly because my part's super easy. Your part, far more difficult. So let's shift the work, right? Just finish this sentence for me in whatever you need to say. Many clients just don't understand what?
Is that one for me?
Yes, sir.
I think simplicity and focus will take you a long way to taking the necessary steps forward. And again, I've mentioned it a few times now that many brands are guilty of doing too much. And marketing really isn't that complicated. A lot of the logic that has been, a lot of its logic has been made to look complicated by marketers. You know, but it is ultimately very logical, and in a lot of situations. And so I think really just stripping it down to where is the value, and what are you trying to do better for the market, for the customer, and that will go a really long way to getting most brands to their intended goal.
Okay, and that's a good answer, by the way. And Andrew, same question. Many clients today just don't understand what?
That marketing is not just about pretty pictures and branding. Marketing is gone into an era of multiple tests and iterations and variability of images and how we approach the customer. And I think that's an important part, where instead of just focusing on, you know, how pretty we look in terms of our branding, is what is actually customers saying to us.
Right.
And that's a very tough thing to do within the environment where you're starting to, you know, grow and trying to get sales over. So you're throwing things at the tactics, where essentially, again, trying to understand who your customer is and how to approach them, and then measure that approach, measure these results directly through iterations. I think that's the biggest misunderstanding in terms of especially startup marketing.
Okay. Now I have another fill in the blank question for you. We'll start with Andrew, right? And this is not about clients. This is about fractional CMO. So just fill in the blank on this one. A fractional CMO starting brand new today, like this is their first day as a fractional CMO, a brand new fractional CMO probably doesn't understand what?
That it's a sales process.
Right.
Fractional CMO, it's not as another CMO coming into another company. A fractional CMO is about finding your own sales process, finding your clients through your network, and that's a never-ending process, right? It's something that you will always be part of, you always do, and that it's almost, you know, like going into freelancing. It's when you go from employed into self-employed or freelancing, that's what happens. You become a salesman. You become a salesman of your own services, of yourself, of your approach, and that means there's a lot of effort that needs to go that way. And I think that's an important part of the lesson.
Chris, what do you think? A fractional CMO, like today's their first day out on their own, right? They'll probably be surprised by what?
How fast their learning trajectory is.
Yeah.
I think that's for me, it's kind of like when you start a new job, or when you first started out in your career, or you do anything for the first time, and you're like this new guy, and everything is new and shiny. But the longer you stay in a company, the more comfortable it is, and yes, your knowledge of the company can deepen, and you do grow, especially if the company is growing or goes through periods of transformation. But I personally found my learning trajectory increase exponentially over the past year, which has rounded the corners of many facets of my marketing knowledge, just because I'm able to look inside of so many different brands all at once, and I'm able to go through that test and learn process over and over again and across brands. You're able to contextualize your knowledge in so many areas, and that's the thing about marketing, is that one thing doesn't fit all cases, and so context is so valuable, and you're able to, by taking a hypothesis and recontextualizing it within a specific brand or several brands, you're able to create a real framework and understanding of that piece of knowledge. And it doesn't mean it's constant, it doesn't mean it's black and white, but it means that you have a better understanding than if you would just be looking through one lens. And so I think that's the most important and exciting part of being a fractional, is that you get to look under the hood of so many different companies and really refine your expertise.
Right. No, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so we don't curate guests, and I mean that in the best sense of the word, which is to say, no guest, and for that matter, I don't know who's going to be paired with who in an episode. Everyone picks their own time slot, and so off we go. And so one of the I love that because you rarely get overlap. There's like usually like an energy to it from strangers as opposed to like carefully picking two people who work in oil and gas together or whatever, right? And so, and I have had requests where like two people wanted to be on the same episode at the same time. I said, I don't know how you manage that unless you want to mess around with Calendly. But one of the things that it leads to is you end up almost like in an elevator with someone else who's in the same field as you, but might have very different experience. And so what I do at this point is I let each fractional CMO ask the other fractional CMO any question they want about clients, about industry, about being a fractional CMO, about finding clients, whatever you want to do. So Andrew, how about we start with you? What question would you ask Chris or another fractional CMO that you were suddenly thrust into and paired with? That came out wrong.
Yeah, it's good approach. I love that. My question will be super on the point of what's happening right now with the development of AI. I just wanted to know whether, Chris, you use anything in your work in terms of AI models, in terms of generative content, text, images, videos. What your approach is like? Do you automate? What tools you use? I mean, it's a pretty wide question, but maybe we narrow it down. Do you use it at all? And if yes, what sort of things or process you solve with it?
Yeah. So yes, do use it. I won't claim to be an AI expert. However, I am on a weekly basis trying to incorporate more and more into my work. And I think it goes from a relatively basic point of view, whether that's using ChatGPT, for example, custom scripts. I think where it's helpful is in the assistance of ideas and idea generation and helping to refine a hypothesis. So that's and for general content generation. Whether I use it for video and imagery, not to a huge extent. Video, no. Image, yes, occasionally. But I find that it often doesn't quite grasp the nuances of a brand. And so that can be quite challenging then to implement. However, it can take existing imagery and analyze pros and cons, and I can use that to create again ideas for particularly for paid media. And so sort of if I were to, for example, have a winning ad, I'd be able to input that into a custom script I have to provide inspiration in terms of what I could do next steps, how I could create more winning variations, that kind of thing. And then, of course, AI is embedded quite heavily within some of the tools that I use, but that's less, I guess, firsthand, more third party from that perspective. But I expect that over the next 12 months, I'll be using it a lot more, particularly as the development of image and video progress, which I'm really excited for.
And Chris, how about you? Any question for Andrew?
Yeah, so fractional CMOs are limited by the hours that they put in. You know, it's inherently unscalable, which as a marketer is quite a challenge because you always are looking to scale things. Do you have any workarounds for that? And would you ever be tempted to go down a different path?
I'll start from the last one. I think, yes, for sure. In terms of the different path of creating a product that people can use versus offering the services. Because like you said, the scaling fractional CMO is a very tough approach, right? There's so many hours in the day, so you can't really scale it beyond, I don't know, 12 hours, 16 hours, whatever we do these days. I have a small team which helps to delegate certain things, to work on the tactical stories, to understand and maybe lead some customers here and there. So it depends on, again, the customer. I have one in ed tech, I have another one in crypto, I had another one in consulting for fashion retail. And so there's various things that can be done. But I'm leaning kind of, that was my question was to you at the start, but I'm leaning a lot into utilizing the AI and automation within the space overall, in terms of especially the generating content from scratch. Yes, to idea generation, but it's also the actual text and images and everything. So the workflows are more automated than it used to have them, because before, and even with tools that we used to have and we still having, is where you put generation of the text from one input to another to do the video, where now I'm building something that is kind of seamlessly connected together. So that's my approach. I'm leaning heavily into AI. I'm making sure that I know as much as I can know about it, but also use it within my work. And that's, I love doing it on the practical basis, right? There's lots happening right now, but I'm taking the specific use case and then using that and automating through AI. So I guess automation, team, and delegation, and then the good old planning and making sure that you've got everything scripted out as much as you can.
All right. So, Andrew, these days, this has been great, by the way. Thank you guys so much. I like listening to you guys. You're fun. Andrew, who should be contacting you these days, client-wise, and how should they get in touch with you? What's the preferred way?
The best way is just reach out on LinkedIn. You've got my LinkedIn profile directly there. Or
so it's Andrew White for people who are listening instead of watching.
Right, yes. And my ideal client is a startup that's just getting out there, that has had a pre-seed or seed funding, somebody that has got a good knowledge of their market and approach, but also need help of scaling out and making sure their product can be seen by other customers. Yeah, I think that's kind of in a nutshell.
All right. And Chris, how about you? Who should contact you these days, and how do you prefer that they do it?
So you can contact me either on LinkedIn. My name's Christopher Day. I've also ventured into the world of attempting to be a content creator through TikTok and Instagram, actually just this week. Name is Growth Hacks Chris. But in terms of the ideal client, sits within the consumer segment. So I work with brands across the home and garden space, pets, nutrition, jewelry, and any brands that are around the sort of 6-7 figure mark and looking to grow into 8-9 figures, but operate largely within the digital remit, but doesn't have to specifically be that.
All right, guys, thank you so much. This has been fantastic.
Thank you very much, Nazdin.
You're very welcome. All right, I'll talk to you guys soon. And if you're watching this was episode 127. Thanks for being here. There are many more episodes and thousands of clips at this point. So check it out. There's a lot of great guests and a lot of great stuff said, just like on this one. Bye.